The station working for you. This is Election Day Live, streaming now.
And good evening here at the 8 o'clock hour. I want to thank you for joining us for our continuing live coverage of Election Day Live 2020. I'm Mark Mullins, and we are really excited to bring you the sights and sounds of this historic and unprecedented election. It's been an unprecedented campaign season as well. And as we get into our coverage tonight, I want to set the stage for what we're entering into today and what has led up to today in our state here in Indiana. We are dealing with an unprecedented pandemic, the coronavirus, and where the numbers stand now dictates where a lot of people chose to get up and go to the polls, taking their health into concern here. New tests that have been coming out since our last report, 25,000 with 2,951 new cases reported and 50 new deaths. Altogether, since the pandemic began, we've seen more than 2 million tests administered, nearly 3 million tests administered, and more than 188,000 cases. We also see an unemployment rate that has been dropping to 6.2%. Its highest was 7.9% unemployment in April as a direct result of the outfall from the coronavirus pandemic. We have team coverage for you tonight as voters continue voting at the polls. We do have some last-minute stragglers that had some problems at the polls. We'll get to those issues tonight, as well as we'll check in on the counting that's going on. But first, we want to bring you the latest election results, and we will start with the Congressional District 5. We will start with the presidential race first. Let's take a look at that. Right now, as it stands, with 36% of precincts reporting, President Donald Trump, right now the incumbent, leading the way at 58% of the vote. Joe Biden coming in at 41% at this point. Joe Jorgensen has remained steady at 2%. Again, that's 36% of precincts reporting. Too early to call yet. This race has already been called, the Indiana gubernatorial race, with 31% of the precincts reporting. Governor Holcomb will retain his seat with 60% of the vote coming in. Democrat Woody Myers at 29%. And a lot of people watching what will happen as more precincts report, especially with Libertarian candidate Donald Rainwater retaining much of the vote at 12% there. A lot of people surprised to see that Rainwater did have this many votes, and many are still waiting to see if he will get more as the night goes on and what message that might send to the Indiana Republicans. The race for Attorney General, here's the latest reporting that we're seeing here with 34% of the precincts reporting. Right now, Todd Rokita is coming in strong at 58%. Jonathan Weinzapfel, the former Evansville mayor, at 42%. And we did learn big news today regarding Todd Rokita's health. He has been diagnosed with coronavirus. We'll be talking a little bit more about that and what he's doing tonight as he's watching election results. We want to check in now with our Megan Sanctorum, who is at the Marion County Voter Count Center, taking a look at some of those returns that are coming in. And Megan, a lot of people are still waiting for more of these precincts to come in, especially in the metropolitan areas. What are you seeing there tonight?
Well, Mark, right now there are still some crews here working to process those absentee ballots. That's what's happening behind me when you see all these employees over here. Now, I'm also joined right now by Deputy Director of the Clerk's Office, Russell Hollis. And Russell, they're making some progress when it comes to these absentee ballots, right?
Yes, we've counted approximately 70,000 absentee ballots already, and that's about a third of the total absentee ballots that we received prior to Election Day.
And how has that been going so far? Do you feel like you have adequate staffing? Are things moving along like they should? Have you run into any issues?
I would say that things have actually gone better than we anticipated, and we have not had any issues with counting the absentee ballots. We're moving ahead of schedule.
And when it comes to processing those ballots, what all goes into that? What are these volunteers or these workers doing?
Yeah, the workers, they cut open the envelope, they take the ballot out of the absentee envelope, they look at the signature on the absentee envelope, make sure that that signature matches the signature on the voter's application. And they also check to make sure that there are 2 sets of bipartisan initials on the back of the ballot.
And then just recently, within the hour or so, you said the first batch of results are starting to be uploaded?
Yes, we've started uploading results from Election Day. We included the about 70,000 absentee ballots that we've counted. We included those with the first results that voters will see on our website.
Okay. And we were talking a little bit before this, and when you look at the number of people who voted absentee versus in person, what are you seeing?
You know, this is one of the first elections, if not the only election that I'm aware of, where the number of voters who voted absentee is greater than the number of voters who voted on election day.
And once again, the absentee, that does include early voting, because early in-person voting does get counted as absentee as well. And just for you, overall voter turnout, I know too soon to have exact numbers for the amount of people that made their way to the polls, but what would you say when it comes to the turnout so far?
We will see a turnout that's comparable to 2008, and also the number of ballots cast will be comparable to 2008 as well.
Okay. And then as for right here, what does the rest of the night look like?
We'll determine it hour by hour.
Okay. But people won't be here overnight. At some point, you'll shut it down and...
Absolutely. At some point, we'll shut it down. We just don't know whether that's 10 p.m., 11 p.m., or later.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Well, that is all from here at the Election Services Center. We'll send it back to you, Mark.
Megan, before I let you go, you've been talking with voters who have been standing in line all day. What were some of the wait times for voters you spoke with? And what were some of the mood as to why they got out and stood in lines today, and their overall feeling about how this election has been going?
Well, the voters that I talked with, I would say the longest wait time that people were experiencing, at least where we're in Marion County, was about an hour. But for the most part, lines seemed to be moving, and it seemed like the wait time was a lot less today on Election Day than people experienced on those early vote times. In fact, there were some people I talked to who said they tried to vote early, waited in line for maybe an hour, 2 hours, just gave up and said, you know what, I'm going to do it on Election Day. And it paid off for them. A lot of them were able to get in and out of the polls pretty quickly, no issues. So overall, I would say it went very well. There were no major issues reported at the polls here in Marion County. And voters just saying it was smooth. They said the atmosphere was calm. So overall, things are going pretty well here in Marion County.
Good to hear our Megan Sanctorum live for us tonight at the Marion County Processing Center for votes tonight. There were issues in other counties when it comes to voters and wait times. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But as I mentioned earlier, Governor Eric Holcomb retaining his seat as Republican governor for the state of Indiana. That came down earlier today, one of the first races that were called by the AP. WRTV's Cameron Riddle is live downtown. He has spent the evening with Republicans and has reaction to that news that came down. Cameron, what was the mood when that announcement was made by the AP early in the evening?
Well, Mark, I'm actually attending virtually tonight. We are waiting for any announcement to come over on the live stream that the GOP has provided us. In full disclosure, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, it was a decision of WRTV not to have me actually in the room for this gathering, as we are in a pandemic and those numbers are continuing to shoot up across the state and across the country. So with that said, I've been talking via phone and via text with some of the Republicans who are inside of that election watch party, which is really just getting underway. It was at 7:06 is when the Associated Press first called the race for governor here in Indiana for Eric Holcomb. And the conversations that I've had, that came as a little bit of a surprise that that projection came so early. If you were with us for the news at 6, then you might have saw me speak with the chairman of the Indiana Republican Party, Mr. Hoffer. And as I tried to gauge him, hey, what are you thinking? What are you feeling? What is the mood like? What are you expecting? It was really up in the air. What was clear was that they were not expecting it to be an early night. We see those numbers still coming in, and the very latest numbers that we are seeing from ABC News right now has about 26% of Indiana's vote in right now. That is putting the governor, Eric Holcomb, at 55% of the vote that is in, as well as 35% for Dr. Woody Myers, and then another 10% for Rainwater, who was putting up numbers. He's got 78,000 votes right now on the board with 26% of that vote in. You were just talking with Russell Hollis. One of the places that we are watching is Marion County, with an abundant number of absentee ballots that are being counted and may take several days to be counted. So the numbers that we're seeing right now, Russell tells me, is mostly the people that voted today. At least that's how that would work in Marion County. So as we progress throughout the night, we're going to see more numbers. And is this going to change? The Woody Myers camp is holding out hope that it does. They had sent out a statement saying that they're going to wait for some more official results. But so far, early, the first governor's race to be called, the first state to be projected for both the governor and the president is Indiana at 7:06 with the Associated Press making that projection. Again, we've got a long night ahead of us, and 26% of the vote, I think, caught a lot of people off guard that I am hearing from, that they just didn't think that that projection would come so soon with the massive amount of absentee ballots that have been out. So, as I said, the Republicans are at the JW Marriott tonight. They are watching, they're essentially watching TV with us. They're probably watching us right now. And so they're watching those numbers continue to come in. It has been limited to about 250 people. That's close friends and family of the Republican candidates, where normally it'd be about 1,000 people inside of that ballroom tonight. So how we will do it is we will be watching online. The Indiana GOP has a live stream that'll go up on their Facebook page when it is time for any of the candidates to speak. So we're watching for the governor. He's at the JW Marriott. One person who was going to be there that is not, Mark, as you alluded to, Todd Rokita was supposed to be there at the JW Marriott, but due to his COVID-19 diagnosis, he's at home resting with his family. So that is something that is changed tonight when we talk about COVID restrictions or changes that may have happened. Mr. Hoover says that they have not made any immediate changes to screening people going inside, but they're asking people to self-screen and keep an eye on their symptoms of possible COVID. But tonight they are watching election results as more come in. Mark, I'll send it back to you as we keep an eye on something to pop up on the live stream tonight from our virtual newsroom.
And of course, we'll be checking back in with you, Cameron, tonight. Thank you. And as Cameron alluded to earlier tonight, the AP calling Indiana for President Donald Trump. And ABC News just moments ago did the same thing. Of course, Indiana giving up its 11 electoral votes for President Trump. Again, though that race called by the AP and ABC News. Again, that's the latest we have. President Donald Trump winning Indiana. Let's take it back down live to where the ballots are still being counted tonight. Still a lot of counting to do as Indiana precincts continue to turn in their ballots. This could be going on for quite some time, and we have a lot of dedicated workers who have put in some long hours making sure these votes are counted. We're hearing that these workers will be on the job until at least 10 o'clock tonight. You're watching Election Day Live. More to come right after this.
I'm Amanda Starrentino, and right now on WRTV Election Day Live, we are tracking the votes here in Indiana. Let's take a look at the latest results. The first Indiana numbers are now coming in for the race for President of the United States. As you know, it is between President Donald Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, and Libertarian candidate Joe Jorgensen. Right now, Indiana has called Donald Trump as their projected winner, as you see right there. The 5th District congressional race, Republican Susan Brooks is retiring. Now, there's a heated battle between Republican candidate Victoria Spartz, Democrat Christina Hale, and Libertarian Ken Tucker. Christina Hale is leading those votes at 50% at this point. Victoria Spartz is following at 47%. At 3% is Ken Tucker, with 47% reporting. Attorney General Curtis Hill won't be back in his seat, so Republican Todd Rokita is going up against Democrat Jonathan Weinzapfel to become the state's next Attorney General. Todd Rokita announced today that he has COVID-19. His campaign says Rokita is doing well tonight. With 39% reporting, Todd Rokita is leading that race. The race for governor between Governor Eric Holcomb, Democratic candidate Dr. Woody Myers, and Libertarian candidate Donald Rainwater. Now, Governor Eric Holcomb has been the projected winner for that race with 58%. And it's a different kind of watch party tonight with the pandemic. We head now to the Republican perspective with WRTV's Cameron Riddle. Hey, Cameron.
Hey, Amanda, good evening. So we are keeping a close eye on the race for governor here in Indiana. Already at 7:06, the Associated Press is projecting that Governor Eric Holcomb will be Indiana's governor once again. With only 26% of the vote in, that seemed to maybe catch at least the Republicans off guard, because when you were with us for the news at 6, we heard from the Republican Party chairman who said they didn't really know when results would come in. 7 o'clock, 6 minutes after polls closed in the northern and southern west counties of Indiana is not the time that they expected that a projection would be given. So this is my virtual watch party tonight. It's been a WRTV decision not to have me actually in that room with the Republicans due to the COVID-19 pandemic. So what we're doing is watching virtually. When the governor does make his acceptance speech, we'll see it right here on the GOP's Facebook page. That is the way that they are inviting people to celebrate and to see what the governor and other candidates have to say. Now, as we know, there will be one candidate who, if he does win, will not be at the watch party, and that's Todd Rokita, because of that COVID-19 diagnosis that was announced from him today. The GOP, of course, is wishing him well, but says in the meantime, they hope that he is relaxing, watching results, and getting well. So we are watching virtually to see any acceptance speeches of what may come. And I should note that the Democratic candidate, Woody Myers, is saying they're going to hold off till they get a little more official results, because with only 26% of that vote in, they're hoping that they can make up some of that with that mail-in vote and people who voted today. Back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Cameron. And we are keeping an eye on the races tonight as well with WRTV's Kara Kenny. Kara, what can you tell us?
The Democrats are doing their watch party right now on Facebook Live and on YouTube. So far, no one has said anything about Governor Holcomb being declared the projected winner. Dr. Woody Myers' campaign, as Cameron just said, is waiting on more definitive results to come from the Indiana election division. Now, Dr. Woody Myers, former state health commissioner, is taking on incumbent Eric Holcomb. He has criticized the governor's response to COVID-19, saying the state has not done enough to contain the virus. Myers' campaign was confident heading into election night, saying many people are fed up with the governor's reopening plan. And the Democrats also felt that strong voter turnout from young voters and Latino and Black voters would be in their favor. Now, Dr. Myers is watching those results come in right now at the Conrad in downtown Indianapolis, and other candidates are watching the results come in from around the state. We're live downtown. Kara Kenny, WRTV.
You're watching Election Day Live at WRTV, our streaming services and our digital platforms. Thanks for being here with us as we continue monitoring the election results that are coming in. And we want to give you the latest numbers that we're seeing now. Moments ago, ABC News joined the AP in calling Indiana, handing over its 11 electoral votes to incumbent President Donald Trump at 59% of the votes, with 44% of the precincts reporting. Joe Biden at 59%. Of course, votes are still being counted. But again, ABC News and the AP projecting that Donald Trump wins Indiana. Let's look for the other races that we are covering here tonight. In the race for governor, this has already been a called race. Governor Eric Holcomb, the Republican incumbent, will retain his seat for another term, coming in with 58% of the vote, with 39% of the precincts reporting. Again, he was up against Dr. Woody Myers, the Democrat, and Libertarian candidate Dr. Donald Rainwater, with 12% of the vote there. Again, Eric Holcomb says that Eric Holcomb will be keeping his seat. We're waiting to hear from him. Our Cameron Riddle is monitoring their watch parties and the campaign headquarters for any reaction from that party. We're also watching the race for Attorney General. Todd Rokita, who was diagnosed with coronavirus today, is looking to be in the lead at this point with 61% of the vote and 42% of precincts reporting. He's up against Democrat Jonathan Weinzapfel, a Democrat who served as mayor of Evansville. We're keeping a close eye on this one. Another big race, the 5th congressional district race, and this is a key seat with voters in Grant, Madison, Tipton, Hamilton counties, and part of Marion County as well. And this is one that the Democrats were trying to get switched. Susan Brooks will no longer be serving in that seat. And so we have Christina Hale, Democrat, looking to be the pulling ahead in this one at 50% of the vote. She had been trailing early on when the first numbers started coming in. Victoria Sparks not far behind at 47%, and Ken Tucker, the Libertarian candidate, at 3%. This is a key seat, and it could switch from red to blue depending on how the results come in tonight. Our Kara Kenny has been focusing on the Democratic campaigns and joins us now live downtown with a look at how this could change things. I know a lot of Democrats are watching how this 5th congressional district seat, Kara, could really change the balance in Washington.
Absolutely, Mark. And the Democrats, it's a little bit different this year because of COVID-19. They're doing a watch party right now on YouTube and on Facebook Live. But so far, no one has said anything about the Associated Press declaring Governor Holcomb the winner. In fact, Dr. Woody Myers' campaign, they are not calling it a night just yet. They say they are waiting on more definitive results from the Indiana election division. Now, Dr. Woody Myers is a former state health commissioner. He's been very critical of Governor Holcomb and his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic, saying he has not done enough to contain the virus. Now, Myers' campaign was very confident heading into tonight, saying that strong voter turnout among young voters, black voters, Latino voters, and new voters was really going to work in the Democrats' favor, and also a lot of people who are upset with how the pandemic has been handled. As of right now, Dr. Woody Myers is downtown at the Conrad Hotel. He's watching these results come in. Christina Hale, as you mentioned, that 5th congressional seat, she's watching the results come in at home. And so really people are watching these results come in from all over this state. There's no big election party tonight because of COVID-19. So a lot of Democrats tonight hoping for some victories. Back to you.
A lot of people keeping their distance as well due to the coronavirus. Will be interesting to see when the more counting results comes in, what we'll hear from each of the parties there. WRTV's Megan Sanctorum joining us now live again from the Marion County Voter Processing Center. And Megan, you had a lot of people who are working very hard tonight. We're closing in on the 9 o'clock hour. When could quitting time be for them? Or do they plan to go really late into the night?
Well, Mark, as of right now, it is too early to tell. They're just going to kind of play it by ear and see how it goes. But I can tell you things are starting to slow down a bit here. If you take a look behind me, you can see about a handful or so counters over there. But those are pretty much the only people left working here. And what those people are doing is they are working to process those absentee ballots. You know, we saw a record number of people turn out and early vote. So they are going through all of those ballots and getting them ready to be counted. We know that so far here at this Election Services Center today, they have counted roughly 70,000 absentee ballots. Now that is 1/3 of the total number of absentee ballots requested here in Marion County. Now, as I mentioned, still too soon to tell how late they'll be here, but we know they'll maybe wrap it up around 10 or 11 and then resume counting again tomorrow or so. We also know that the first batch of results are starting to be uploaded online. Now that includes those absentee ballots that they've counted so far today, as well as the first 10 or so sites from in-person voting as well. Now, one thing that we did learn is that here in Marion County, they actually received more ballots from absentee voters than they did voters who decided to vote in person at those polling locations today. Other than that, no major issues to report. Things are smooth here at the Marion County Election Services Center. Mark?
And Megan, tell us a little bit about what they're checking for as they go through each of these ballots as they count them. What do they have to check and then check their list again?
Yeah, well, they have instructions and little openers set up here. So all of the ballots here, I'll show you, they're sealed. They have a little opener to help them. And this kind of walks them through it. They just have to make sure that the envelope is signed by the voter. They'll then set it aside in a separate pile. And any ballots that don't have signatures, those have to be set aside as well. And then they'll unfold, straighten them, and then just getting them ready to be put into that machine so they can be counted.
You said that they counted about 70,000 today, which is 1/3. So how many days are they expecting to be counting? If that's what they did in one day, by Friday, could we see the official results?
Yeah, I think that's the goal right now. They're looking at 2, maybe 3 days. Obviously, the sooner the better. Well, they want to know as soon as possible, but they also want to be accurate and make sure they do it the right way. So I think they're hoping for within the next 2 or 3 days to have all of those absentee votes processed.
Still an uphill climb to go there. Our Megan Sanctorum live for us tonight. Thank you, Megan. Well, we wanted to talk to as many voters as we could this year about why they turned out in such strong numbers, and this was numbers that were unprecedented. We want you to take a look at what the reasons that we got.
I mean, I've been really waiting to vote for a long time just because of the state of the country is just abysmal to me. So our shirt represents Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who is, you know, like an icon for women. And Susie is my sister-in-law and her aunt. And she was a very big supporter. She was anti-Trump, and she lived in probably the reddest county in Indiana. And because she passed away a few weeks ago, she's not able to vote, and so we're kind of here on her behalf and trying to represent her.
She'd love to have been here for this, and this is our way of honoring her at a time that she would really want to be present and make a change. For the country, everything to change.
Just basic decency to come back. I mean, locally, I'm not as concerned. I'm so concerned about what's happening nationally that's my primary focus.
We just want the country to come together. We want to be on the same page as much as we can be, or at least not as divided as we are right now.
Yeah, too divisive.
The last time people thought that, they didn't come out, and this is where we are now.
Exactly.
It matters.
It matters. Your vote matters.
Please, I'll drive you.
Because I think change is important. It's important now more than ever. We need to fight for different legislation, different bills need to be passed. We just want, you know, equal and fair treatment for different people. Well, she's a pretty calm baby, so that helps. But also, I just want to, you know, set the standard for her early, teach her while she's young, that voting is important. So hopefully, you know, I can kind of leave a very important stamp with her when I leave. I think it's important for other people to come out here and vote because it just shows that everybody's voice matters. I know it's kind of cliche to say that, and I know that it's cliche to hear sometimes, but every vote does matter. And if we don't vote, then what are we doing? We can't complain about change not happening if we're not out here to vote. I hope that the turnout is a lot more than it was last time around. I also hope that the votes do show that change works. So I hope that from this comes a lot of bills being passed, a lot of things, a lot of issues that this country has being recognized and showing, hey, our vote matters. We did something about it. We can change the world. We can change how we live, and we can change this country if we all put that effort forward.
Awesome. If we all put that effort. Well, we've seen a lot of examples of people going to great lengths to make sure they get their ballots cast. And now we want you to meet an Indiana dad who went a great distance to make sure his daughter's vote got counted. McKenna Brown goes to college 6 hours away from her Marion County home. She didn't receive her absentee ballot in the mail, leaving her without a way to vote in the 2020 election. But knowing the importance of voting, her father, David, drove those 6 hours Friday to pick her up to give her a chance to vote in person earlier today.
We believe in it wholeheartedly. That is voting and the process first and foremost. And it's always been important in our family, but never before have we both felt the social demand and also just believed personally that it can never be more important than it is in this election. And so, we know that in Indiana, sometimes things are pre-decided, but that doesn't ever preclude us from doing what we're supposed to do. And we went back and forth a little bit on it. It is a long way, but in the end, that's how important it is to us. And so we're also very fortunate. We count our blessings, and we know we were able to do it. And McKenna was talking about, she knows plenty of people at school that were further away or didn't have the resources. So we wanted to make it count for us.
Now, this was McKenna's first time voting in any election, and what an historic one she chose. David and his daughter plan on driving 6 hours back to Cornell College. That's a small liberal arts college in Mount Vernon, Iowa, on Wednesday. Congratulations, and Dad really stepped up there. That's great to see, just to make sure his daughter's vote counts. We appreciate it. I want to get back to the race for Congressional District 5 there, and we'll be highlighting some of the platforms, the candidates that you've seen over the past few months, some of their key points that they wanted to get across, especially when it comes to issues like the economy and race relations. At this point, Christina Hale, Democrat, has 50% of the vote, leading the way over Victoria Spartz and Libertarian Ken Tucker. Victoria Spartz, the Republican candidate, at 47% of the vote, and Ken Tucker at 3%, with 49% of precincts reporting at this point. When it comes to the economy, Victoria Spartz, the Republican, says that she wants to return to policies that got the country to a working economy before the pandemic hit. She wants to see less government, less regulation, less taxes. Spartz has also called for workforce development training to help unemployed Americans to work on new careers. Christina Hale, the Democrat, has a different approach to this whole thing. She's calling for a whole government approach for the economic recovery for the pandemic. So she wants the federal government to provide relief to small and mid-sized businesses to help them keep their doors open. But she's also called for oversight so large corporations aren't taking more money that is allotted to them. She supports the supplemental income checks and more unemployment benefits. In the long term, she supports renewable energy such as wind and solar. She wants Indiana to be a leader in that field when it comes to sparking the economy here. And Libertarian candidate Ken Tucker, with 3% of the vote right now, is calling for a new jobs market in Indiana, focusing on agriculture, industry, distribution, and retailers. And he wants to do that by legalizing medical marijuana and opening up industries like hemp, CBD, THC, lotions, and other associated with cannabis. He also, like Hale, wants to see Indiana's energy production shift. That is where those candidates stand on the economy. We will be bringing you the latest on different platforms from different candidates and different races as we go throughout the evening here. Let's take it back to the Marion County voter production. let's bring you back down live to the Marion County voter processing plant there. And you see the handful of workers there. They have a tall task ahead of them. Our Megan Sanctorum telling us earlier that 70,000 votes were processed today, and that's about a third of what needs to be counted. So there are going to be a few extra days of counting going on there, and it is very meticulous. They have to check for signatures. They have to check to make sure boxes are checked. They have to make sure that there are no errors or mistakes there, and those ballots that do need that extra attention will be set aside so that they can be rechecked. Again, these workers will be going at least until 10 o'clock and returning and picking up again tomorrow morning. You're watching Election Day Live here on WRTV.
Good evening. I'm Amanda Starrentino with WRTV. We have a Democracy 2020 election night update. Here are the latest numbers here in Indiana. Right now, ABC calls Indiana for President Donald Trump. He has a lead in Indiana over former Vice President Joe Biden and Libertarian candidate Joe Jorgensen. The president has 60% of the vote with 50% of precincts reporting. Again, ABC has called Indiana for President Trump. And the Associated Press has called Indiana for Governor Eric Holcomb winning re-election. As you can see, Holcomb has 59% of the vote with 44% of precincts reporting. The 5th District congressional race is about as tight as it can be. Democrat Christina Hale has 49% of the vote, and Victoria Spartz has 50% of the vote with 50% of precincts reporting. And WRTV's Cornelius Hawker joins us live now. Cornelius, votes are still being counted in Marion County, and you've been keeping track of this all night. What have you noticed so far?
What I've noticed, Amanda, is that these people here, I want to call them, they are the last few of the few. They have been here, some of them, since 8 o'clock, and some are volunteers, some are getting paid, but they are dedicated to making sure all of the votes are counted accurately. At least 70,000 of them have been counted here at the Marion County Vote Center. And they're going to be wrapping this up around 10 o'clock tonight. But I'm told that they're going to be right back here tomorrow to make sure all these votes are counted. And of course, whenever we get an update on how Marion County voters turned out, we'll be sure to let you know online and on our website. Amanda?
Welcome into Election Day live on WRTV, Democracy 2020 coverage as we enter the 9 o'clock hour here on this election night. I'm Mark Mullins. Thanks for being here with us. We do have quite a few results to get to tonight, the latest counting that we can bring to you. And we're also monitoring race for president, the race for governor, and the race for attorney general, and the contested congressional 5 seat that we'll be telling you about here in just a little bit. A lot of people turned out to the polls today, standing in long lines. Much of the state saw smooth sailing for voters as they were able to get in and out, maybe standing in line an hour at the longest. But that was not the case in Madison County, where voters are still in line at this hour, some waiting as long as 6 hours because of voter machine issues. Our Stephanie Wade has been monitoring this late into the evening. She joins us now live from Ingalls in Madison County. And Stephanie, some folks are still waiting in line, but determined to make sure their vote is cast.
Yeah, that's right, Mark. People are still in line here in Madison County. Right now, we are in Ingalls. You folks have been waiting for quite some time here.
Yep, 4 hours.
4 hours.
Yeah, 4 hours. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Did you think it would be this long?
No.
Have you voted before?
Yeah.
Have you ever waited this long?
Never. It was 10 minutes last time I was here. That's it.
10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes is normal.
In and out.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it is in a lot of the counties in this state. You see here, we had, 3 early voting locations? You look Hancock County just south of here, they had 8.
Yeah.
You see the governor wouldn't allow no excuse ballots. We're one of 6 states that wouldn't allow that? It's ridiculous. And you look at this county, Madison County, we've got the open Senate seat, or Congress seat between Christina Hale and Victoria Sparks. You can't tell me that's not planned. It's a contested seat where they know it's close. This is negligence and voter disenfranchisement at its core.
Yeah, as you can hear, a lot of frustrated voters here. And what I actually found out about why we're seeing such long lines, it's not just the big turnout, people wanting to cast their ballot in this election, but also some voting equipment issues. They are down some machines. They had to purchase some new machines last year, about 170 of them. And the county clerk tells me they just simply did not have enough. She tried to request some more and create what's called these voting centers, where anyone within the county, they can vote at any center. But right now, as it stands, people have to vote within their own precinct. They have one location. So as you can see here, there's at least 4 hour long line. Well, if it was a shorter one at a different location, they could go there. But that is not the case for this election. So again, creating these long lines here and some frustrated voters. But you're almost there. We're almost to the front.
Well, they didn't keep us home either. We still came and we waited to get our vote in.
That's true.
Yes,
that's
we
true.
did.
And where was the first time voter?
Right here.
Right there?
Yeah.
Are you excited even though you're going through this?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is history. You're in
It is
history.
history. It's a historical election.
True.
What made you want to come out and vote today for the first time?
Patriotic?
Yep. Your duty. There you go. That works.
Yeah, those are the words I'm looking for.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, guys, and good luck. You're almost there. You almost made it. So if we walk around here, I can show you a little bit more about this line. We can see the end. So there is some good news here. There is an ending coming. We were in Pendleton earlier as well, and that looked like it was ending soon there. Now, here's also another unfortunate thing that I just heard from the county clerk. They actually, around 7 o'clock when I was speaking with her, started sending paper ballots to some of their locations just to make those lines move smoother. So we'll see how that works, but they sent those out around 7 o'clock to all their polling locations. So a lot of issues they're trying to work through right now here in Madison County. I'll keep you up to date, Mark, but for now, send things back to you.
Thank you. Stephanie, I want to keep you here for a moment, and I'd like you to pose a question to some of the voters that are waiting there in line. I'd like to hear what their thoughts are when they hear that the AP and ABC News have already projected the winners, Donald Trump, the winner for Indiana, and as well as Governor Holcomb. I'd like to know from the voters, how do they feel that these races have already been called while they're still waiting in line?
Yeah, and we were just actually speaking about with some people with that as well. So for everyone, that ABC has actually already called Trump winning. They've called Governor Holcomb as winning. How does that make you guys feel as you're still waiting here to cast your ballot?
ABC.
Not real good.
Not
but
good.
Only 50% of the precincts are in, so
Yeah.
how can that be?
Yeah.
Loving it.
Yeah, I think it's just made up.
I am loving
I think it's made up
really
for
makes me feel warm
media.
It's for the media.
It's a media thing to have
Declare a winner.
somebody to
Oh, look at this.
have, a voice, and we haven't had ours yet.
You're still
And-
going to go in there and cast.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm going to
I don't want to be on TV.
Yeah, I mean, going here for the first time.
It's your first time too? Yeah, so even though they apparently called it, you still want to go in there?
Oh, yeah. I got to say what I got to say.
Absolutely.
And I want to get
So they're determined to go inside and cast a ballot. A lot of first-time voters here, which is really encouraging to see, but they're moving forward.
Good to hear they still want to make their voices heard regardless of what's being called at this hour. Our Stephanie Wade live for us in Madison County, keeping track of some of the voter machine issues that have held up the lines there this evening. Stephanie, we'll check back in with you. WRTV's Cornelius Hawker joining us now. Cornelius, votes are still being counted in Marion County tonight. You've been covering the election as we began the early voting process. As you show us what's going on there tonight, also tell us what some of the biggest frustrations you've noticed or heard from some of the voters that you've encountered along the way.
Well, here at this site, a lot of these people have already voted. They're actually counting the ballots. But Mark, that question you posed to Stephanie about the races already being called for, the presidency and along with the governor. I've had a chance to talk to a lot of these volunteers back here counting these ballots, and they are dedicated. These are the last few that are here, but there were dozens more. I heard around 200 at a time. All these tables were full, and as you can see, they are furiously still working. They're going to be closing down around 10 o'clock, but they're going to be right back here tomorrow to make sure all the votes are counted. So even though the races have been called, these people, after talking to a lot of these people, yes, of course, the numbers, the presidency, all that is so important, and we do want to know who wins. But I think it is worth noting that a lot of these people are volunteers. Some are getting paid, but they are spending their time on election day to count all of your votes correctly. And I think that is just worth noting. That is democracy in action. They are making sure your vote is counted accurately. So I think that is worth noting tonight, that despite all of the races being called, like you said, the presidency and the governor race, these people are still working, and they're going to come back here tomorrow to work so we know the official results. Mark?
Cornelius, you say that you spoke to some of the volunteers there, some paid, some volunteering tonight. Those that aren't being paid, have they explained to you why they're doing it, why they're putting in all this hard work right now, what they're getting from it?
Yeah, exactly what I said just earlier. They feel like it's their duty. It's a part of, it's how democracy works. One lady, she was probably in her 60s, maybe 70s, told me that her parents fought for this. She was a black lady, so her parents weren't able to vote as easily as someone who looks like me can now. And so she said, I have to be here. I have to honor them. I have to honor all the folks who got beat, the folks who were killed trying to vote. So, this means so much to a lot of these people, especially the volunteers who are just here spending 8, 9, 10 hours whenever, quite honestly, they could be sitting at home watching us and watching these results roll in. So it's a mixture. It's a mixture of very personal and just feeling like it's your patriotic duty to help your county, your city, and your state get all the votes counted.
A civic duty. Our Cornelius Hawker live for us downtown tonight. Cornelius, thank you. WRTV is keeping an eye on the race for the White House, and as we've reported, the AP and ABC News have projected Donald Trump as the winner, getting Indiana's 11 electoral votes. Well, you can call it an indicator, you can call it a predictor, but for about 107,000 people in western Indiana, they call it home. For more than a century, Vigo County voters have had a knack for picking the presidential victor. On the western edge of Indiana, I-70 is the high-speed road stretching through Vigo County, the place that seems to also know the road to the White House.
For over 100 years, though, there's a good streak of a correlation between how the county votes and how the nation votes.
Dr. Matthew Bergbauer is a political science professor at Indiana State University in Terre Haute in Vigo County and an author.
When Trump's elected in 2016, Vigo County voted for Trump. And when Barack Obama won in 2008, Vigo County went for Barack Obama.
Since the 1890s, Vigo County proves it's got a winning streak, swaying between red and blue in presidential elections and typically selecting the victor.
People do like to voice their opinions here on what they want.
Daniel Mahan hears the ballot box chatter while he's on the job at this downtown Terre Haute barbershop.
There's more people that I feel like has been talking about leaning toward the Democratic side than the Republican side. Me personally, I'm not neither. Whoever I feel would benefit me the best is who I would vote for.
Any predictions on which way it's going to sway?
Oh, it's going to go Republican.
Vigo County native Dale Garlock is retired, spending time working on house projects. He knew all about Vigo County's bellwether status and shared the issues he's paying close attention to in this election.
Right now, I think there's a lot of talk about health care and also about a financial situation.
The trend here of selecting the winning president more than a century strong is an anomaly, since Vigo County's demographics don't completely mirror the nation. Dr. Bergbauer points out, and the Census Department confirms, Vigo County is more white than average when it comes to racial makeup. The income level here is below average, and though the county is home to ISU and a couple of other colleges, the average resident does not have a college-level education, according to Dr. Bergbauer. But the professor highlighted a parallel running between this small Hoosier County and the nation.
But there is a thing called party ID. And we know that the nation's been pretty evenly split on party ID for quite a while now. We can pick, a really red county and a really blue county in Indiana. We have Vigo County that's a really evenly split county when it comes to party ID.
A county made up of both Republican-leaning rural farmers and Democratic-leaning college students in Terre Haute's urban core. We are in a time of polarizing politics, especially on the national scale, but people here in this county say that here there's at least a willingness to listen to opposing views.
I think they like to listen and weigh their options, and everybody pretty much knows what they want to do anyway, but I think they still are open to, what one candidate is offering over another.
It seems like people are more voiced in their opinions these days than maybe in the past, and I think that causes some controversy, but I mean, it's also kind of good to be able to hear both sides of the political spectrum too.
People like to look at the national economic conditions and then their own pocketbooks and say, hey, should I reward the incumbent party or should I penalize the incumbent party with this next election?
Here, often people weigh the issues and how those issues weigh on their bank accounts and livelihoods and vote accordingly, not necessarily in accordance with their party ID.
I graduated college spring of last year, this last semester, and of course I got school loans, so that's a big thing on who would benefit me better on assisting with school loans and stuff, forgiveness, stuff like that.
And it's kind of just indicative of how powerful everyone's vote is. It's not really like a state-by-state thing, but it's really like a person-by-person phenomenon.
So, in a county with no qualms of switching from red to blue to red again, Dr. Bergbauer has a prediction for this predictor.
So will you find, Trump country here? Yes, you will. And I expect Trump to win Vigo County.
Well, the two elections in which Vigo County voters did not peg the winner include the 1908 and 1952 elections. Businesses across the country have been boarding up ahead of possible unrest following election night. In Washington, D.C., a large fence has been put up around the White House. Our Scripps crew is on the ground where a protest has been gathering there tonight.
I'm Thomas Hoppo, still out here right in front of the White House, where an even bigger group has gathered here to protest against Trump. You can see that they have little banners saying to remove Trump right out here in front of the fence that was put up in order to keep some of the people out of here. But even though we are here and it's predominantly Biden supporters, we did find one Trump supporter here spreading a positive message among everybody.
You see the shirt, Make America Great Again.
There's only one man that could do this job, and that's President Mr. Donald J. Trump. I pray that everything is peaceful within the country tonight and beyond, whether or not the outcome is, even if it's Biden, like it's gonna be turmoil if Biden wins. But if my president, Mr. Donald J. Trump, wins 4 more years, it's gonna be a blessing. How you should react, just show love. It says in the Bible, 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 13, and now abide hope, faith, and love. The greatest of all three is love. Let's show love for our president. Let's show love to Joe Biden, whether or not he wins. Let's bring America's back to the top nation that we are.
Now, people keep continuing to pour in here right in front of the White House to protest and show support for either candidate here. We're going to continue to monitor what happens here, but so far everything is smooth and peaceful. Reporting, Thomas Hoppo.
Take you back down now live to the Marion County Voter Processing Center. That's where workers are still hard at work. Our Cornelius Hawker and Megan Sanctorum are there speaking to some of those volunteers who are doing it on their own time and their own dime, and some who are being paid and doing it for as their civic duty. These workers plan to be doing this counting until at least 10 o'clock tonight, and we'll pick it up again tomorrow. You're watching Election Day Live right here on the WRTV digital platforms.
Indianapolis public school teacher and was responsible for implementation of IPS desegregation in the 1970s. They were great parents, and they raised me in the Martindale-Brightwood area of Indianapolis, where today some of the most difficult challenges we face as a state are ever present. They raised me to think, but they allowed me to dream. And they did their best to protect me from what they knew was the most devastating force society has created, that of racial injustice. They took care of my needs, and they allowed me and encouraged me to grow. It's because of them I could leave Indiana and attend Stanford and Harvard and become a physician and an executive. And it's because of them and my upbringing I decided to become health commissioner and to work to correct the evils that I saw in how people were treated and how decisions were made. About 2 years ago, when this journey began, I knew it was a long shot and that the battle was entirely uphill. But that did not deter me. After securing support and encouragement from my bride to begin the journey that has ended tonight. I just spoke with Governor Eric Holcomb and congratulated him on his victory. I ran because I knew we could be better and that we could do more for those who have so little and more for those who need so much. I announced my candidacy before we'd ever heard of COVID-19 and before we'd ever seen the murder of George Floyd, and both intensified my desire to offer an alternative to the status quo for all Hoosiers. There are many to thank, those on my team, those who supported our campaign, and those who tweeted, retweeted, called, texted, and carried our messages forward to all who would listen. To our 5 children working or in school in 5 different states, we'll need now to figure out how to do a virtual Thanksgiving dinner together. And to my 2 grandchildren who have grown at least a foot taller in the last 15 months, G-Dad will be coming out to visit soon. One final thought before I ask my friend Linda Lawson to speak with you tonight. We have seen an unprecedented turnout nationwide in the last 30 days, despite 4 to 6 hour lines. And that must be nurtured, not further suppressed or ignored. Voting, like breathing, should be easy, not hard. It's way past time for that and so much else to change. Thank you very much. I appreciate your support. Linda.
I'm Amanda Starrentino, and right now on WRTV Election Day Live, we are tracking the votes here in Indiana. Let's take a look at the latest results. Indiana's vote totals are still being tallied for the race for President of the United States. As you know, it's between President Donald Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, and Libertarian candidate Joe Jorgensen. Right now, the Associated Press and ABC News have called it for President Trump to be the winner in Indiana votes. It will still be a while before we know who wins out in electoral votes in total. Now, 5th District Congressional Race Republican Susan Brooks is retiring. Now, there's a heated battle between Republican candidate Victoria Spartz, Democrat Christina Hale, and Libertarian Ken Tucker. It's still a pretty tight race there between Victoria Spartz and Christina Hale. Victoria Spartz is leading at 49% of the votes, with Christina Hale following at 47%, with 60% of the precincts reporting. Attorney General Curtis Hill won't be back in his seat, so Republican Todd Rokita is going up against Democrat Jonathan Weinzapfel to become the state's next attorney general. Todd Rokita announced today that he has COVID-19. His campaign says Rokita is doing well tonight, and so far he is leading with 62% of the votes, followed by Jonathan Weinzapfel at 38%. In the race for governor between Governor Eric Holcomb, Democratic candidate Dr. Woody Myers, and Libertarian candidate Donald Rainwater, that race has been called with Governor Eric Holcomb projected to win Indiana. And we've been getting calls and messages from concerned voters in Madison County about long lines at polling places, up to 6 hours in some areas. The Madison County clerk tells us the county purchased new voting equipment last year, but there is not enough for each polling site. The county's original plan called for voting centers in fewer locations, but the Madison County Commission went with traditional polling centers instead. We are keeping an eye on the race for governor with WRTV's Kara Kenny. Kara, we do know that Governor Eric Holcomb is the projected winner of this race. What have you been following tonight?
That's right, Amanda. Dr. Woody Myers, the opponent, the Democratic opponent against Governor Eric Holcomb, has conceded the race just a few minutes ago. He thanked his supporters and congratulated Eric Holcomb on his victory. He also thanked his family. Now, for the past 2 hours here on Facebook Live, the Democrats have been talking about how to get those voters in a very red state to turn blue. And that's something that Congressman Andre Carson, who it was just announced has retained his seat in the 7th Congressional District. He talked about that just a few minutes ago.
And I think in order for us to really operate effectively, this election, a takeaway has to be that the American people are no longer satisfied with entertainers and charlatans who call themselves leaders. Americans want real policy objectives met.
Now, for the past 2 hours, we've heard from Democrats across the state of Indiana, but we have yet to hear from the candidates in some of the biggest races, that is Attorney General and the 5th congressional seat. Now, Dr. Woody Myers ended his speech tonight by saying this: voting, like breathing, should be easy, not hard. And I appreciate all your support. That's the latest from downtown. Kara Kenny, WRTV.
Kara, thank you. And we head now to the Republican perspective with WRTV's Cameron Riddle. Hey, Cameron.
Hey, Amanda, good evening. So we are watching from the other side of the aisle, Dr. Woody Myers just giving his concession speech. So now at any moment here on this screen, we will be hearing from Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb giving his acceptance speech. Right now, with 45% of Indiana's votes in, that has been enough for the governor to say, I'm coming back, and for Woody Myers to say, I'm stepping aside. We will be watching for that and bring you more coming up tonight on the news at 11.
Thank you, Cameron. We have continuous Democracy 2020 coverage tonight on the WRTV app, on streaming devices including Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Fire TV.
Welcome back to WRTV Democracy 2020 coverage, Election Day live here on WRTV's digital services, streaming live on Roku, Apple TV, Fire Stick, whatever device that you're using, including the web and WRTV.com. We are covering election night tonight and several late-breaking developments to tell you about. Within the last few minutes, the AP has projected that Congressman Andre Carson will retain his seat in Congress. That just coming down. We also heard from Dr. Woody Myers. He was the Democratic challenger going for the gubernatorial seat. Governor Eric Holcomb will retain that seat. The AP and ABC News calling that earlier this evening. We do have team coverage for you here tonight. We want to start with WRTV's Megan Sanctorum joining us live from downtown at the Marion County Ballot Processing Center, where some volunteers have been very hard at work. And Megan, I got to say, I hope they're drinking energy drinks or coffee or something to keep them up as well, because this is a big job ahead still.
Oh yeah, Mark, you see plenty of energy drinks out around here. There's still a handful of people working to process those absentee ballots. If you take a look behind me, you can see them over there. I did just get some updated numbers from the deputy director of the clerk's office here. He says so far today they have processed approximately 80,000 absentee ballots. Now that is just over a third of the total absentee ballots here. He says their goal for tonight is to get done with Washington, Lawrence, and Pike townships. So that's what these people here are doing. They're going to try to keep working until they get through processing all of the absentee ballots from those 3 townships. Now there are still the other 2/3 of the absentee ballots to count. Those will be done over the next day or two. They're hoping to have all of those counted by Thursday. Now, as for in-person voting, I just got some updated numbers on that as well. We know about 178,000 people here in Marion County voted on Election Day in person. That number less than the total number of absentee ballots. So this is a new trend, something new we've seen on this election. More people chose to vote absentee, whether by mail or in person, than they did here on Election Day. But again, back out here at the center, the people will probably be out here working for maybe another hour or so. They're hoping to get through those 3 townships, and then they'll wrap up for the night and make it back here in the morning. Mark?
You're saying that today fewer people waited in line than they did in those lines that we saw for early voting. And Megan, you've been covering the early voting process here. So tell me a little bit about what you noticed out there today versus when you were out there at the City County building watching as people waited in those long lines long before Election Day.
Well, probably the biggest thing is just the wait times. I mean, we really saw people get in and out of there pretty quickly today. The longest wait time that I saw just throughout the afternoon was about an hour. I know some places here in Marion County may have seen closer to that 2-hour mark, but that was all in the morning as people lined up kind of before the polls opened. So that was just getting through all of the people that were there bright and early in the morning. But throughout the day, things really moved pretty quickly as well. Much different than those early vote hours. I know over the weekend we saw some people wait 8 hours in line. Here at the location that we were at Allisonville Christian Church. There were some people at the end there in the final few hours who were walking in and out within 10 minutes. I know some of the larger locations as well, like Banker's Life, Lucas Oil, you could get in and out of those in under 10 minutes at some points today as well.
A reversal of the trend there. Our Megan Sanctorum, thank you. We'll be checking in with you in the next hour as well. Aside from the race for president, there are several races happening across the country that could determine the balance of power on Capitol Hill. Our Newsy partners are keeping track at what's at stake.
I'm Nathaniel Reed at the Capitol in Washington. The balance of power for the legislative branch will come down to 470 congressional races taking place tonight. With 35 Senate seats up for re-election, Democrats just need 3 seats plus the White House to win control of Congress's upper chamber, meaning Vice President Kamala Harris could break 50-50 ties on Capitol Hill. Now, with 4 additional seats, Democrats would have a clear 51 seat to 49 seat majority. Any Democratic majority would mean a change in Senate leadership, with Chuck Schumer of New York slated to become the chamber's majority leader. Across the Capitol and the House of Representatives, Democrats are expected to retain their current control and even pick up several seats. The first Senate races to watch: Georgia, Kentucky, and North and South Carolina, where polls closed at 7 o'clock Eastern. Reporting at the Capitol, I'm Nathaniel Reed.
We are awaiting Governor Holcomb's acceptance speech. Our Cameron Riddle is monitoring that. As you heard earlier, the Democratic challenger, Dr. Woody Myers, already gave his concession speech there. But we do want to tell you a little bit about some of what we're expecting Governor Holcomb to talk about as he touts some of the procedures, the policies he's put in place when it comes to managing the coronavirus, some of the economic indicators that have helped get our state back on the right road. We're expecting Governor Holcomb to talk about his executive orders that he put into place when it comes to coronavirus. They were controversial, but he said he had the legal authority to issue a mask mandate to help keep the spread of COVID-19 down. Holcomb had critics on both sides of the political spectrum saying that he hadn't gone far enough with the mask mandates and shutdowns. Other people thought he went too far. And some in Holcomb's party even endorsed his libertarian opponent when it came to his handling of the coronavirus. As you can see there, Governor Holcomb has won the state, 59% of the vote compared to Woody Myers' 29% and Donald Rainwater's 13%. We're also expecting that when Governor Holcomb takes the podium, that we will hear him speak about the economy. And the economy has been a big issue this year, especially as we've seen the fallout after the coronavirus pandemic took hold. Holcomb repeatedly saying the state's economy is heading back on track since the start of the pandemic in March. Strong economy is one of Holcomb's 5 pillars that he touted. He touted Indiana maintaining its AAA credit rating and a deep reserve as well, despite the pandemic. He's also called for lower taxes to Hoosiers with a personal income tax rate of just more than 3%. So in his term as governor, he's made a name for himself with international economic trips. We're expecting him to touch on that when we finally see him approach the podium for his acceptance speech and his winning speech there. We did have some issues at the polls. In fact, some voters are still waiting to make their voices heard and cast their ballot. Our Stephanie Wade has been spending some time with those voters who are going to stick it all the way through until they cast their vote. Stephanie, you're in Madison County tonight, and you've hit a couple of communities there that are seeing the same kind of frustrations there.
Yeah, definitely some frustrations tonight as voters are having to wait at least 4 hours in line here. Finally, the line looks like it's about dying down here in Ingalls. We've been in Pendleton and around Madison County where, again, people are waiting up to 4 hours in line. And it's really not just the big voter turnout that is causing those lines, but some voting equipment issues, or lack of equipment, I should say. Again, there's been some fewer machines at these polling locations, making those lines extremely long today here. But again, people are wrapping up at this location here in Ingalls. But again, frustrated too, because we were hearing that about 50 out of the 111 precincts are reporting right now. So still some votes are coming in and need to be counted. As you can see, people are still waiting to cast their ballot, although some elections have already been called here in Indiana. But we will keep you updated here with what's going on in Madison County. Again, those voting issues causing some of these lines here. Mark, back to you.
Stephanie, when we received word that there were some issues happening with the voter machines and long lines in Madison County, you were the first reporter from our team to head up that way. What was it like when you first arrived on scene and started talking to some of those voters? What did you notice first thing? What struck you as you got out of the news car?
Well, people were definitely surprised. A lot of people saying, I came to this precinct, the past presidential election, and it took me 10 minutes to vote. So they were definitely surprised that it was taking up to 4 or 5 hours in some of these locations. So definitely some frustration there. And a lot of first-time voters were excited. They were here excited to cast their ballot for the first time, and having to wait for so long, definitely some frustration.
The voters that you spoke with here, earlier when I checked in with you before, they had heard that some of the races had already been called. What did you hear from those voters when you told them that news, even though they hadn't cast their vote yet?
Still some disbelief, right? And maybe saying, hey, are we sure yet? So some maybe distrust and saying, hey, I still want to make sure my vote is counted. Even, if there's some slight margin, I'm going to make sure that my vote gets in there. So no one was budging from the line, that's for sure. And saying, hey, I don't care what you try to tell me right now, I will be voting in this historic election.
All right, our Stephanie Wade live for us in Madison County tonight, and what is shaping up to be a very long night, not only for you and the voters, but also the poll workers there who have had to manage the crowds and keep everybody at ease despite the issues that were going on there. Stephanie, thank you. We'll check in with you in just a bit. Let's get the latest now on some of the races that we're following tonight. The latest numbers as poll workers continue to count ballots. This is at 61% of precincts reporting in the presidential race here in Indiana. And as you can see there, President Donald Trump remaining steady in the lead here with 60% of the vote. Joe Biden, the former vice president and Democratic challenger, coming in with 38% for Indiana voters there. And Joe Jorgensen, the Libertarian candidate, at 2%, which has remained steady. Again, President Donald Trump leading the way here. This race has been called by the Associated Press and by ABC News, with Donald Trump getting Indiana's 11 electoral votes there. We're still waiting to hear from all the rest of the counties. The voting tabulation will continue. We're also watching the Attorney General race going on tonight, and let me give you the latest numbers on that. Todd Rokita is in the lead here with 62% of the vote there. He's facing Jonathan Weinzaffel at 38%. Neither is the incumbent, because Curtis Hill, who owns the seat currently, will not be keeping that seat. And so this is a battle that is fresh between these two. Again, Todd Rokita with 62% of the vote, and he's watching the tabulations from his home tonight. He is home comfortably resting after being diagnosed with COVID-19. We learned that earlier today. A couple of issues that they are really focusing on include the coronavirus. And Todd Rokita has said in his platform as Attorney General that he wants to work with Indiana legislators to clarify the emergency disaster law in the state as it's written, with short-term emergencies in mind and not the months-long COVID-19 fight that we've seen. He says that he will examine parts of it to allow Indiana legislature to provide input with authorizations for longer emergencies like COVID-19. And meantime, Weinzaffel has a 6-point plan, as he's touted, to help Indiana after COVID-19, including protecting health care, increasing funding for PPE and for local law enforcement, beefing up the Attorney General's Consumer Protection Unit to go after pandemic-related fraud, and providing greater oversight of Indiana nursing homes, ensuring that public cessation tax dollars are being spent as intended to make sure Hoosiers have safe and accessible voting options there. Just a couple of the issues that they're focusing on right there. We're keeping a close eye on this race, and right now, Todd Rokita leading the way at 62% of the vote. Our Cornelius Hawker has been spending the evening with some of the poll workers who are tabulating those votes in Marion County. We'll catch up with him live downtown. And Cornelius, still a busy scene there. Even though there's still a lot of work to do, it looks like a lot of the folks there are really keeping at it and keeping their nose to the grindstone.
They definitely are. And as I said earlier, even though a lot of these races have already been called, I've talked to so many people who say they're going to be here until around 10 o'clock tonight, and then they're going to come back tomorrow to count all the votes. And I think that is worth noting. Yes, we want to know who won the presidency. Yes, we want to know who won the AG race and the governor's race. But I think that this is the story within itself. You've got people who are Republicans, independents, Democrats, all here checking the ballots, and then in the very back, they're making sure they're getting tabulated through the machines. It is just something you have to really be here to understand how amazing it is. You know, I've talked to so many people here, a lady by the name of Carmelita, who is from Indianapolis, born and raised here, and she told me she didn't even hesitate to do this. Whenever they were putting out the call for workers, they were afraid that they weren't going to have enough workers because of the pandemic, and she said, I had to sign up. You know, this is what democracy looks like. This is how democracy works. So again, you know, we're waiting on all these races to be called. We're about to hear from the governor shortly, I believe. But I think it's worth noting that there are people, not just here, but also it's Madison County, right, where there are folks still in line. My colleague Stephanie Wade was talking to them, and even though they heard about the races that were already called, they still wanted to go vote. because this is something that is guaranteed in our country. It is difficult in some areas, and some people do have a hard time. But yeah, it is just something that is so important. So exercising your right to vote and these folks counting these ballots. I hear that the governor is about to speak, so I'm going to toss it back to you guys in the studio.
Our Cornelius Hawker live for us tonight. Thank you very much, Cornelius. We do want to return to, I want to call your attention to a flip that we've seen in the Congressional District 5 seat. Earlier this evening, within the hour, Christina Hale, the Democrat, was leading the way, but that has since changed. Victoria Spartz, Republican Victoria Spartz, is now in the lead with 51% of the vote here. Christina Hale with 45%, and Ken Tucker, the Libertarian candidate, with 4%. And this is with 69% of the precincts reporting. This has been a flip, with Victoria Spartz taking the lead here. All three candidates vying for Susan Brooks' seat. Susan Brooks will not be returning to Congress. And another one of the issues that they're focusing on, and we want to highlight some of the platform points that they're making here. We'll talk about race relations. And Victoria Spartz was born in the Ukraine. She says she's experienced people and members of the media even making fun of her accent and trying to demean her as an immigrant, a successful woman. But she says that she doesn't believe that race is a systemic issue in America. She said the United States wouldn't have elected Barack Obama if systemic racism existed in the country. She also says she would not have been nominated in the primary election if people hated immigrants and women. And again, Christina Hale also saying that the country needs to acknowledge the fact that systemic racism exists in the country. She says the inequalities have been exposed in the deaths that we've seen of Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, and the shooting of Jacob Blake. She's called for legislation to address mass incarceration and sentencing reform, two issues that disproportionately affect people of color, she says. Again, race relations, just one of the platform topics that we've seen in the Congressional District 5 seat there. We'll give you a live look downtown at the Marion County Ballot Processing Center there. And we, again, are awaiting the acceptance speech of Governor Holcomb, who has been projected the winner in this state. He will retain his seat. We've already heard from Dr. Woody Myers, the Democratic challenger, who gave his congratulations to the governor. We are waiting to hear from Eric Holcomb about what he says will be in the next chapter for his gubernatorialship here in our state. You are watching Election Day Live right here on the WRTV streaming platforms.
Oh, what a night! I'm seeing so many faces that are so dear to Janet and me. We thank you so much for coming from places like Odin. And let me just say at the outset that I just had a very good conversation with Dr. Myers, and I thanked him for stepping up and stepping forward and offering an option, offering a real contribution to the conversation we're having as Hoosiers to where we want to lead this state, a state that we both love dearly. And I appreciated his words, and I look forward to the next chapter in Dr. Myers' life for him and his wife. And let me also just say that before our crew starts to celebrate safely and creatively, I already know some of the options. The results of this election year, an election year like no other. I have some friends and family to thank, if you'll just indulge me here for just 1 minute or two. First and foremost, to my beautiful bride, Janet. Who no matter how difficult a day might be, the best part of my day, every day, is coming home to see her. We have... That's true. I'm not embellishing just because you're here. We have seen and done a lot. And fortunately, we've been able to do it together. And I look around this room and I see a lot of strong individuals, but there is no one stronger than you. And also, to the rest of my family, my parents, my in-laws, where do I start and where do I stop? As the years go by, I realize just how lucky I have been and am to have a mom and dad like I do, like to have the family that has brought so much joy and laughter to our lives. Each and every year, come what may, especially my nieces and nephews who 4 years ago were about waist high, and now some of them are already starting to look down on me physically. To my partner, our Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch. We have so much work to do. And I am flat out eager to continue to get her done with you over the next 4 like we've done this last 4. Thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for always putting people first. I also want to say thank you to all the various faith leaders who have supplied me with daily doses of inspiration and encouragement along this journey, no matter if we were on a peak or in a valley. I've told each and every one of them that they have the harder job. And I will see their prayers and raise them because of the very people that we serve. To all the employees, and I see some of them here tonight, to all the employees of the state of Indiana up and down the chain who wake up every single day, and their charge is to take it to the next level. As Coach Dale says, my team is on the court, and I could not be prouder of the state employees of Indiana. To my cabinet, and I see them here as well. I am as emotionally moved by your presence and by your efforts as I am of my own family. I didn't trick you when you signed up for this job. Little did we know what 2020 might bring, but my luck, and yes, Indiana's fortune, is what puts a smile on my face. And when I think of each and every contribution that you all make, I burst with pride. Thank you.
I'm Amanda Starrentino with WRTV. We have a Democracy 2020 election night update. Here are the latest numbers here in Indiana. ABC has called Indiana for President Donald Trump. He has the lead in Indiana over former Vice President Joe Biden and Libertarian candidate Joe Jorgensen. The president has 60% of the vote with 62% of precincts reporting. Again, ABC News has called Indiana for President Trump. The Associated Press has called Indiana for Governor Eric Holcomb winning re-election. As you can see, Holcomb has 59% of the vote with 59% of precincts reporting. Dr. Woody Myers, the Democrat in this race, has conceded. Republican Victoria Spartz is leading the 5th District congressional race now. Now, Spartz has 51% of the vote, and Christina Hale has 45% of the vote, with 69% of precincts reporting. In the race for Attorney General, Republican Todd Rokita has 62% of the vote, with 60% of precincts reporting. So he has a sizable lead on Democratic challenger Jonathan Weinzaffel. And let's go to WRTV's Cornelius Hawker, who is with Marion County officials as they continue to count votes tonight. Quite a big task there, Cornelius.
It is quite a big task, and as I said earlier, even though a lot of these races have been called, lots of these folks behind me, they're here. They were supposed to be leaving at 10 o'clock, but they are staying here to get all these votes counted. Now, at last check, I talked to Russell Hollis, who is a deputy clerk in the Marion County Clerk's office, and he said that they have counted around 70,000 votes. Now, of course, we want to know who's going to win the presidency, who's going to win the governorship, all these races. But I, like I've been saying since today, it is so worth noting how impactful these people are. They're Republicans, they're Democrats, they're independents, and they are here volunteering their time. Some of them are getting paid, but they're here to make sure your ballot and your vote is counted. And I think that is the most important thing for tonight. No matter who wins, this is what democracy looks like. So we'll let you guys get back to the governor talking right now.
And we definitely appreciate everything they are doing. We have continuous Democracy 2020 coverage tonight on the WRTV app, on streaming devices, including Roku, Android TV, Apple TV, and Fire TV.
That you assembled, Mindy and Huck and Joe and Jake and Holly and Greg and Stephanie and Matt and the field team and all of our county coordinators in all 92 counties who from day one bought into this all positive, all the time campaign, really embraced it at the exact time when our state and nation needed it the most. You all should be proud of your work, and I could not be more so. Well, let me just say this. What I'm even more proud of is around here in Indiana, we don't just dream big things, we do big things, and we aspire to be a positive influence all along the way. Think about this. Over the last 4 years, Indiana has seen new job commitments go up, wage levels go up, capital investments go up, foreign direct investments, that's called onshoring, go up. In migration, people are moving to the state of Indiana. It's going up. The number of back-to-back balanced budgets continue to go up. The numbers of years that we've had AAA state credit ratings continues to go up. Our employment goes up while our unemployment goes down. RV production and our ag yields go up. Treatment beds for those who are suffering, struggling with addiction continue to go up. The numbers of Hoosiers who are on the Healthy Indiana plan continue to go up. Adoptions go up. K through 12 funding goes up. All of our Indiana infrastructure advantages, roads, rail, trails, broadband internet connections, ports, both air and water, continue to go up. building permits continue to go up even during a year with a global pandemic. And all the while, our recidivism rate has gone down. Our infant mortality rate has gone down, Terry. Our overdose death rate has gone down. Ladies and gentlemen, even and especially in a year like 2020, ain't it good to be a Hoosier? Hope and growth and opportunity are alive and well in our state. And knowing that this is the day the Lord hath made, and we should rejoice and be glad in it. And whether or not you voted for me or Suzanne, thank you for voting. Let's get busy. Let's get busy helping our neighbors in need, just like all those nurses and doctors and assistants and teachers and law enforcement officials and firefighters and Indiana National Guards, women and men. Every time they leave home to serve us. Let's get busy by building up our neighborhoods and our neighbors. Let's get busy by proving the truth will prevail against any detachment from any honest mooring. Let's get busy by showing that civility is way more productive than civil unrest. My friends, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let's get busy building one Indiana for all. God bless and good night.
You've just heard Governor Eric Holcomb's acceptance speech as he enters a second term. He is the victor here in Indiana for the governor's seat, giving a speech saying that balanced budgets keep happening. The infant mortality rate has gone down and continues to go down. The recidivism rate continues to go down. The unemployment rate going down, and saying that it is still time. Let's get busy to keep Indiana moving forward. He thanked the members of his staff and thanked much of the church community for their support in this election season. Well, this election season that we've been hearing from Hoosier voters of all ages, all walks of life. Our Troy Washington spoke with a woman who has been voting for decades. She also spoke with a young man who has not been able to vote for a decade, and they're sharing the importance of exercising their rights.
This election is extremely important to me because I feel like this is a potential turning point in history.
Dontrell Kelly is just 27 years old. He's what most would classify a millennial. But don't count him out because he says he knows his vote matters.
I've actually just recently got married in June, and my wife is now pregnant.
He's thinking about his own legacy and how voting impacts his family.
We can wait in the line. We can stand and wait for some time.
He's referring to the long lines everyone has been talking about. As a new husband and soon-to-be father, he wants to make sure he's a part of how our nation proceeds. For his generation, he's concerned about police brutality and wants change.
There's just been a sense of heaviness over the country, and I feel like the heaviness is just weighing down on people.
Sandra Williams has voting experience that spans decades.
I started when I was old enough to vote, and I'm now 79.
This year, she tried to mail in her ballot.
I sent in 2 applications to vote through the mail. Never received a ballot.
When that failed, she turned to Souls to the Polls. The van took her to vote in person.
I was determined I was going to vote one way or the other.
She says she's not new to voter suppression, but knew nothing would stand in her way.
You stand in line to buy shoes, you stand in line at the movie theater, or wherever you want, anything you really want to do, you will stand in line to do it. This is something you need to put on your calendar.
Both this 27-year-old and this 79-year-old agree it takes voting to see change.
You'll wait in line to go buy some new Jordans. You'll wait in line to go do X, Y, Z, but you can't wait in line to use your voice to make change.
They say if you can't wait in line to make another plan to vote, but whatever you do, don't make an excuse. Working for you, Troy Washington, WRTV.
It's been a long day for voters, and it's also been a long day for the people who are helping voters get through those lines and those who are counting ballots tonight. Our Megan Sangdorum has been live for us this evening at the Marion County Voter Processing Center. And Megan, it looks like things are quieting down there tonight. So tell us what comes next. What comes in the days ahead?
Yeah, well, Mark, I can tell you there's still a handful or so workers still processing. Take a look behind me, maybe a dozen or so over here. We are starting to see some of these workers pack up. They are starting to call it a night, but I know their goal for tonight right now is to get through Washington, Lawrence, and Pike Township. So what they're doing right now is they're processing the absentee ballots, and they really want to get through those 3 townships before they go home for the night and then come back here tomorrow morning. So to answer your question, that's what's next. They will come back here tomorrow morning and they'll keep counting these. They say they're guessing it'll take maybe 2 or 3 days to get through all of the absentee ballots. So far they've counted 80,000 or approximately 80,000. That is about 1/3 of the absentee ballots. Now I also got some new numbers on how many people voted in person today. We know 178,000 people voted in person today. That number for the first time is smaller than the number of people who voted absentee. And once again, absentee does include people who early voted in person and those who submitted their application by mail. Mark?
Our Megan Sangdorum live for us tonight. Thank you, Megan, for that. So once again, all eyes are on Florida on a close election night tonight. The notorious swing state is important to both Trump and to Biden. Scripps reporter Joe St. George explains what both parties are watching for in the Sunshine State tonight.
Florida, Florida, Florida. With 29 electoral college votes, it's the biggest swing state prize outside of Texas in the 2020 election. And Florida is expected to be much closer when it's all said and done than the Lone Star State. It's a state President Trump really needs to win. Biden can afford to lose it and still win. It gets really hard for the president if he loses Florida. Now, here is some encouraging news for Republicans. In Miami-Dade County, again, a key county, the most populated county, in 2016, President Trump received 333,000 votes, around that. So far this year, tonight, the results are already in, and he's received at least 457,000 votes. So he has surpassed his total turnout from 4 years ago. Now, this is just one county, but it is a big county in Florida, and both campaigns are paying attention to it. Something else that the campaigns are paying attention to, demographics, specifically minorities, African Americans, Latinos, what their turnout is like tonight as we begin to look at results. We spoke with Jonathan Collins from Brown University about the significance of African Americans and Latinos in this year's election.
The leading issue that seems to be polling amongst African Americans is healthcare. And obviously this is going to interact with what's been happening with the COVID-19 pandemic. And it's not just the size of the Black electorate, which has maintained a relative steady level. It's the location of Black voters. You know, there are at least 6 swing states where Black voters make up at least 10% of the electorate.
Now, we can't say much at this hour, but we can say that Florida is going to be close, and African Americans and Latinos will play a pivotal role. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
We want to bring your attention to the race for Attorney General and a development there. The AP is calling Todd Rokita as the winner in this race here with 62% of the vote and 61% of precincts reporting. Todd Rokita has won the race to become Indiana's next Attorney General. The Republican former U.S. Congressman from Indiana beat Democratic former Evansville Mayor Jonathan Weinzapfel and will succeed Curtis Hill. So Rokita has served as a representative for Indiana's 4th congressional district. He did that from 2011 to 2019, as you recall. And before that, he served served 2 terms as Indiana's Secretary of State that ran from 2002 to 2010. And as Secretary of State, Rakita helped implement Indiana's voter photo identification law, which, by the way, is one of the first in the country. One item that Rakita discussed during his campaign is working with Indiana legislators to clarify the emergency disaster law in our state, as it was written with short-term emergencies in mind and not the months-long COVID-19 pandemic that we've been fighting here. So many in Indiana have been frustrated during the pandemic that Governor Holcomb hasn't called for a special legislative session. Rakita received more delegate votes by the Indiana Republican Party than Hill in July, and the last year of Hill's tenure was marred by sexual misconduct allegations, as you'll recall, and as we've reported here at WRTV. Hill was accused of inappropriately touching 4 women at a party in March of 2018. His law license was suspended for 30 days. Again, Todd Rakita has won the race to become Indiana's next Attorney General.
It is the most important election of my lifetime.
Yeah, local organizations have been working hard to make sure every Hoosier can cast their ballot either early or on Election Day. And tonight, WRTV's Cameron Riddle introduces you to a group that has been working hard this election season to provide free rides to the polls.
Souls to the Polls was born out of fear in light of what the federal government was doing from the top down about mail-in ballots, actually dismantling machines.
With the election still looming, several churches, city county councilors, and the Indianapolis Urban League banded together to create Souls to the Polls, a shuttle service that transports Marion County residents from a church near their home to the city county building to vote early and in person. Dr. Clyde Posley says the majority of the people they are driving to the polls originally had plans to vote by mail.
They don't trust the process. That it was ever tampered with at all has sent shockwaves and fear through most of the people that I know who traditionally use mail-in voting.
Souls to the Polls has already transported hundreds of Hoosiers to vote in the first 2 weeks of October. Lakeisha Brown has been driving one of the 9 shuttle buses and says passengers are happy with how easy it is to go vote.
The convenience of being picked up right there in their neighborhood and not having to deal with parking.
22-year-old Jakaria Posley has already taken advantage of the free rides. She says not getting her vote counted is not an option this year.
You can't just sit here and watch everything happen and not feel some type of urge to go vote.
With so much on the line, Tracy Boyd says the churches are working overtime to overcome any excuse that would keep any soul from the polls.
We've eliminated parking. We've eliminated challenges of gas or car trouble. We sanitize the buses before and after each ride. We've provided snacks. There's a bus monitor.
Cameron Riddle, WRTV.
And really a lot of resources out there that aim to remove some of those voter barriers, those election day barriers that might keep voters from the polls, allowing them to do that with ease, which is why the early voting session was extended and offered longer hours. Let us check in with Cameron Riddle. Cameron, you've been monitoring the Republican side of these races, keeping up with the candidates and their acceptance speeches. And we just heard from Governor Holcomb, who had touted some of the successes of his first term as governor.
Yeah, that's right. The governor obviously in a very good mood tonight. He is here on my live stream. I'm watching it back once more. The governor with Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch making their acceptance speech for a second term as the leaders of Indiana. Of course, the governor is quite proud of the campaign that they have run, soundingly beating Dr. Woody Myers. And so with that, we know who our next governor will be, Governor Holcomb, once again. I got a chance to talk with Governor Holcomb throughout the campaign, and he was really looking forward, and I should say is looking forward to continuing what he started. Now, he said pretty much when it comes to things like racial inequality and racial equity, that everything is on the table to be looked at. That's one of his biggest things, and that's when he talks about we've got more work to do. That's one of them. You've heard him talk about infant mortality was something that he wanted to tackle. The COVID pandemic, of course, has thrown a wrench in just about everybody's plan. And so what we've heard from some of the governor over the past couple of weeks and months is that there was still more work to do. And if just given the time, we could get back to that. Of course, continuing to tout Indiana's growth when it comes to economics, continuing to tout what has been a success from our healthcare workers to get the pandemic under control, keeping schools open. Really, the governor has been looking forward for quite some time. And he says he is starting a review board to basically look at every single department and agency for the state of Indiana, see what needs to be reviewed, see what needs to be changed. He says while he's not committed to such things as making marijuana legal in Indiana, it is something that he would listen to. So if we saw the research, he says he would listen and consider if that is something that he would do. That was something that was talked about in that last gubernatorial debate, along with, of course, daylight savings time. But the governor made clear we will not be changing our times. So it has been a virtual election night for the Republicans. They are down at the JW Marriott in downtown Indianapolis, making their acceptance speeches. So far, no one really making concession speeches for Indiana's Republicans. It's been a pretty good night. It is still really too close to call in the Victoria Spartz and Christina Hale race. That one's still running pretty tight with at least a quarter of the precincts still out that needed to be voted on. But overall, for let's call them the JW Marriott Republicans who are in downtown Indianapolis, they're feeling good down there. They've got about 250 of their closest friends and family when they would normally have about 800 to 1,000 people down there. And of course, one of the people who won, who we would have heard an acceptance speech from, but we didn't tonight, is Todd Rokita, who is the Republican candidate who has now won the election to Curtis Hill's job as the Indiana Attorney General. Todd Rokita, though, at home resting with his family in quarantine after being diagnosed with COVID-19 late this afternoon. The Republicans wishing him well and that he can get back and get ready because he's got a job coming up for him as the calendar gets ready to move into 2021. So a good night for the Republicans. The governor still, if you missed what the governor had to say, I know we showed some of that here on our online live stream, but it is on the Republican Facebook page, the Indiana Republican Party. You can go back and watch it and join the comments for their virtual acceptance speech tonight. Much more to come as we continue with these election results as they continue to roll in. Some state races, as I said, that 5th district with Hale and Spartz still too close to call. So we will be watching that one as Indiana Republicans have a pretty good night. Mark, back to you.
You know, Cameron, you've had a chance to question the governor at a lot of his coronavirus briefings that we've seen. And Governor Holcomb has always said that he has made his decisions based on the numbers and the research and the science that he's seeing as to whether we're going forward or back. And now that the election day wraps up, there's been some speculation about what could happen in the coming days. Have you heard any rumblings about what we could expect when it comes to managing coronavirus now that the polls have closed when it comes to the governor's office?
Well, we've all heard those rumblings, but exactly which line of thunder is going to come with that lightning strike, which people are fearing is another shutdown, we just don't know yet. Here's what we do know. If you just put politics aside, whether you like Governor Holcomb or you don't, or you disagree with him or you do, he is a person that weighs his options. If you go back to March, he, as a Republican governor, was by no means the first governor or Republican governor to pump the brakes and do a lockdown. But he was not the last because he does weigh what our hospitals are going through, what Dr. Box is telling him. He's made it clear he's looking at the science. Now, one would question why we went to stage 5 the month before the election. One would say that Donald Rainwater, who was running as that third-party candidate, was getting some steam when he said, hey, we aren't doing any lockdowns. We're opening all of this up. Was that motivation for the governor to go ahead and reopen things into stage 5? It's plausible. You could see how that could make sense, especially when you just look at the math, not even opinion, but when you look at the facts and the statistics. So as the election is over, and those numbers go up. The governor has told us from the beginning, he and Dr. Box are not just looking at that daily number of coronavirus cases, it is also the death rate, it is the hospitalization rate. So the key thing to really look at, and if the governor makes a decision, which I think he could, I think he would be willing to do if the science backs it up. So if he's hearing from doctors and hospitals who are saying we are out of space, we have to do something, then I think it would be plausible that the governor makes some type of move. Have not heard that confirmed, but we also have heard that we have not heard that he will not. But if you just look at the governor and the type of person he is, how he weighs decisions, it is quite possible that we could see some restrictions as we move into the flu season, as we go indoors for the holidays, and it's cold outside. But now the speculation of would it be Dr. Woody Myers, the physician, or would it be the governor making that decision? We now know it is Governor Holcomb for that second term, Mark.
It is clear. All right, our Cameron Riddle live for us tonight. Thank you, Cameron. And as we take you back live down to the ballot processing center for Marion County, we're at 10:22 p.m. and workers are still there, still operating those machines and still counting ballots as we approach the bottom of the hour here. We're going to keep on top of that. You're watching Election Day live here on a WRTV streaming services. We'll be right back.
I'm Amanda Starrentino, and right now on WRTV, we are continuing to track how your votes are shaping out tonight in Indiana. Let's take a look at the latest results. The race for president of the United States. It's between President Donald Trump, former Vice President Joe Biden, and Libertarian candidate Joe Jorgensen. Right now, the Associated Press and ABC News have called it for President Trump to be the winner in Indiana votes. 5th District Congressional race, Republican Susan Brooks is retiring. Now there's a heated battle here between Republican candidate Victoria Spartz, Democrat Christina Hale, and Libertarian Ken Tucker. It's still pretty tight here. Victoria Spartz is leading with 52% of the votes. Christina Hale at 44% with 76 reporting. Attorney General Curtis Hill won't be back in his seat, so Republican Todd Rokita is going up against Democrat Jonathan Weinzapfel to become the state's next attorney general. Todd Rokita announced today that he has COVID-19. His campaign says Rokita is doing well tonight. And the race for governor between Governor Eric Holcomb, Democratic candidate Dr. Woody Myers, and Libertarian candidate Donald Rainwater. That race has been called with Governor Eric Holcomb projected to win Indiana. We are keeping an eye on the races tonight with WRTV's Kara Kenny. Kara.
Dr. Woody Myers says his race for governor was a long shot and an uphill battle. At 9:15 tonight on the Democrats' watch party here on Facebook Live, he thanked his supporters and let everyone know that he has congratulated Eric Holcomb on his victory. Now, Dr. Woody Myers is a former state health commissioner who was largely critical of Holcomb's response to COVID-19. He said the governor has not done enough to stop the spread of the virus and has failed to listen to the concerns of citizens. Myers says the pandemic intensified his desire to give Hoosiers an alternative to the status quo. Dr. Myers ended his concession speech with this.
We have seen an unprecedented turnout nationwide in the last 30 days, despite 4 to 6 hour lines. And that must be nurtured, not further suppressed or ignored. Voting, like breathing, should be easy, not hard.
Now, although we have heard from dozens of Democrats from across the state on this Facebook Live, we have not heard from two of the biggest races, Attorney General and that 5th congressional seat. I did just get off the phone with Christina Hale's campaign. They say they are waiting for tens of thousands of absentee ballots to be counted before announcing anything. We're live downtown. Kara Kenny, WRTV.
Thanks, Kara. And we have Cameron Riddle keeping an eye on the Republican Party's reaction tonight. Cameron, that watch party looking a little bit different in the age of this pandemic.
Yeah, definitely looking a little bit different. It is virtual. I just finished watching their stream here from the JW Marriott with Governor Holcomb and Lieutenant Governor Suzanne Crouch making their acceptance speech moments after Dr. Woody Myers made his concession speech. Essentially, Governor Holcomb just saying thank you to his staff, to the workers of the state of Indiana, his family, and of course, his cabinet and his supporters, as we now know that he will get 4 more years as Indiana's governor. Did well, soundingly beating Dr. Woody Myers. And so essentially just saying we've got more work to do and we've got more coverage coming up.
Still a busy night across the country. Democracy 2020, and you're watching Election Day live here on WRTV streaming services. We have had our crews across our viewing area monitoring the voting locations and now the ballot counting. WRTV's Kara Kenny joining us live now after watching Dr. Woody Myers' concession speech and then Governor Eric Holcomb giving his acceptance speech. Two different speeches tonight, Kara.
That's right, Mark. Very different. Dr. Woody Myers says his race for governor was an uphill battle and a long shot. He spoke to his supporters and members of the Democratic Party about 9:15 tonight on Facebook Live. Everything being held virtual tonight because of the pandemic. And he let everyone know that he has congratulated Eric Holcomb on his victory. Now, Dr. Myers is a former Indiana State Health Commissioner who was largely critical of Holcomb's response to COVID-19. He said that the governor hasn't done enough to stop the spread of COVID-19 and has failed to listen to the concerns of citizens. Myers says the pandemic intensified his desire to give Hoosiers an alternative to the status quo. Dr. Myers ended his concession speech with this.
We have seen an unprecedented turnout nationwide in the last 30 days, despite 4 to 6 hour lines. And that must be nurtured, not further suppressed or ignored. Voting, like breathing, should be easy, not hard.
Now, on the Democrats' Facebook Live watch party, we heard from Democrats from all over the state of Indiana, but we have not yet heard from two of the Democrats in key races, including the race for Attorney General and that 5th congressional seat. I just got off the phone with Christina Hale's campaign, and they say they are still waiting for tens of thousands of absentee ballots to be counted before announcing anything. We're live downtown. Kara Kenny, WRTV.
Kara, you heard Dr. Woody Myers saying that voting should be easy for everyone. As a part of our investigative team, have you heard any more complaints about the way the voter system is set up here in our state as we went through the election process?
Absolutely. We've heard from voters who never received their absentee ballots and were very confused by the process. We've heard voters who received conflicting information about whether or not they could change their mind and vote in person early if they had already received an absentee ballot. And so some groups like Hoosier Action and Common Cause Indiana have gotten involved and asked the Secretary of State's office to clarify that information that's come out of those offices. And so, yes, we are hearing stories about long lines, about voters not receiving ballots and voters receiving conflicting information. And that's something that has raised concerns among Democrats. And they discussed that a lot on tonight's Facebook Live.
And sometimes we can see that candidates, even though they lose, might be able to put out issues that other candidates might be able to address for the greater common good.
Absolutely.
Our Kara Kenny live for us tonight downtown. We appreciate it. We'll be checking in with you tonight at 11 o'clock. Thank you for that, Kara. Let's get the latest on the numbers that we're monitoring, some of the key races here. As we've been reporting this evening, early on, the AP made the call, followed by ABC News, that Donald Trump was the winner in Indiana with 60% of the vote. Joe Biden, 38%, and Joe Jorgensen, the Libertarian candidate, just 2% of the votes there. Votes are still being tabulated, but this race has already been called. We're following other races as well, and the election results for Indiana have come in swiftly. Governor Eric Holcomb, as you heard earlier, gave his acceptance speech, his winning victory speech there. He wins with 58% of the vote. Dr. Woody Myers, that you just heard from in Kara's report, with 29% of the vote there. Governor Holcomb winning re-election. The Republican beat challenger Dr. Woody Myers and Donald Rainwater to secure his second term as governor. His first term focused on 5 pillars of the economy, infrastructure, the workforce, the drug epidemic, and government service. And he talked about all of these in his victory speech. And when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, Holcomb instituted a stay-at-home order and then brought the state out of in 5 phases. Yet he's faced calls in recent weeks to return to earlier phases as Indiana's hospitalization rates and positive percentages have skyrocketed again. The governor, though, has operated, making his decisions based on the science and the advice of doctors. So now that the election is over, we will wait to see what could happen in the coming days. Of course, this has been a very busy day. Another race that we've watched today is the Attorney General's race, and this one within the hour was called. Todd Rokita winning this one, the Republican candidate, at 62% of the vote there over Jonathan Weinzapfel, the former Evansville mayor and Democrat, at 38%. And Todd Rokita is a former U.S. congressman, and he is served as Indiana's 4th congressional district. So he has a political resume that goes quite far back to 2002. As Secretary of State, Rokita helped implement Indiana's voter photo identification law, and that set a name for himself since it was one of the first laws in the country when it comes to voter identification. Things are quieting down, but workers are still going at it as we approach the 11 o'clock hour. Our Megan Sanctorum has been keeping an eye at on some of the workers there at the Marion County Ballot Processing Center. And Megan, what is the latest that you're seeing there this evening?
Well, Mark, yeah, you said it. It is 10:30 and crews are still here working. They are still processing those absentee ballots. I know initially we told you they were going to try to have people out of here around 10 o'clock, but as you can see, that's not the case. Take a look behind me. You can see, I would say there's maybe a little bit over a dozen or so workers still processing these ballots. We have started to see some of them slowly start to pack it up and call it a night. But there's a good amount. There's a couple over there at that table still going through the envelopes of those absentee ballots. And then I'd say the majority of the workers right now are over by the machines, and they're feeding those ballots into the machines to make sure every vote is counted. Now, as for the latest numbers, we know they've processed approximately 80,000 absentee ballots. That is about 1/3 of the total that were requested here in Marion County. So they still have 2/3 more of those absentee ballots to process. They say that could take another day, maybe 2 days to get through all of those. And as we've told you earlier today too, more people in Marion County chose to vote absentee, which includes both in person and by mail, than they did in person on this election day. The number that we have as far as total voter turnout for in person today was 178,000. And so after this, they will then work to process all of those ballots as well. Mark?
And we've seen the numbers there that tonight with the workers, Megan. Will the same number of processing workers come back tomorrow, or are we expecting a bigger team to help out?
You know, that's a good question, Mark. I will work to get that information for you. At this point, I'm not sure. I do know just from talking to some of the workers here today, a lot of them that are here right now say they are going to go home, get a couple hours of sleep, and then come back. Oh, and if you want to talk about dedication, one of them I was talking to said they got here at 4:30 this morning, and they're still here working. So a lot of effort to make sure that every vote is counted here.
All right, our Megan Sanctorum reporting live for us tonight at the Marion County Ballot Processing Center. Thank you, Megan. Let's get to the latest on the Congressional District 5 seat. Our Kara Kenny reporting earlier that she had a chance to speak with Democrat Christina Hale, who said they're still waiting for even more votes to be tabulated there. But here are the latest numbers, and you can see that Republican Victoria Spartz has widened the lead now with 52% of the vote over Christina Hale's 44%. And Ken Tucker's 4%, the Libertarian candidate there. This is with 77% of precincts reporting so far. This is a key seat in Congress, and Democrats were hoping to turn it blue after Susan Brooks said that she would not be returning to Congress. This seat affects voters in Grant, Madison, Tipton, Hamilton counties, and part of Marion County as well. And it's been a Republican seat since 1993. Brooks, by the way, held this seat since 2013. The candidates there talking about what they would want to happen if they took office, what they'd like to see when it comes to handling the coronavirus. This was one one of the issues that all three really focused on. And Christina Hale had said that she called for social distancing and mask wearing to continue until a vaccine is out to the public. She also called for making it easier for people to get tested and a quicker turnaround for getting those test results back. She says she supports potentially reinstating some restrictions if flare-ups in the virus happen. Hill has also called for communicating with hospital residents transparently so they know what's happening. Victoria Spartz, like Hale, Spartz has called for everyone to practice social distancing and mask wearing in public, and she has praised the work being done by private sectors and businesses to create testing kits and personal protective equipment, and wants fewer regulatory hurdles so more companies can do such practices and follow suit. And the Libertarian candidate Ken Tucker said that he would follow the advice of science, and scientists around the country supports common sense activities that curb the virus's spread, such as social distancing and wearing a mask in public and hand washing. He has criticized President Trump and Vice President Pence's response to the virus and said that Trump wastes time denying facts. He also believes Pence bungled the HIV outbreak in southern Indiana. This is one of their campaign platforms as we hear about what their views are on coronavirus there. But again, Victoria Spartz widening the lead at this hour at 52%, but more precincts are still counting ballots. That work continues at the Marion County Voter Processing Center. The ballot processing center there with a few workers still going at it as we approach the 11 o'clock hour. Again, about a third of the votes were tabulated. There's much more to do in the coming days, and these workers will return there tomorrow. We posed the question to Megan if there will be more processing workers on the team tomorrow. She's working to get that answer for us, and we hope to have that for you coming up at 11 o'clock. You are watching WRTV Election Day Live here, Decision 2020. We've got more headed your way as we continue watching the results come in.
Thank you.